Church shootings, they happen. From 2000 to 2025, there have been 246 shootings in houses of worship, and there have been 307 people killed in those shootings. And those shootings range from just an escalation of violence to planned mass shootings. And in the past few decades, studies have shown that 94% of shootings that happen in houses of worship happen in Christian churches, and this has begun to cause churches to examine whether or not they should begin looking at having security teams or safety teams or whatever you want to call them in case someone enters their church and begins shooting the place up. And this is a tough question to deal with because in any given church, you are going to have people on the side saying, yeah, we should have a safety team to stop a threat that enters the church. And then you will have people on the other side saying, well, we're Christians, we're supposed to turn the other cheek. We're supposed to be like pacifists, would Jesus want to do that? Or, we're supposed to be martyrs for Christ. And so you will have different groups in every church that will think it's okay to have a security team and that will think that it's not okay to have a security team. So this is a tough topic to try to navigate as churches are looking at these statistics, as they keep looking at news it seems at least once or twice a year there we're getting accounts of church shootings. What are churches supposed to do?
Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine Quijano with some breaking news. We are hearing reports of a possible shooting at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas.
We are getting reports this afternoon of an active shooter and a fire at a church in Grand Blanc, Michigan.
Breaking news out of Salt Lake City, Utah, just into our newsroom. This is a live look at the scene there in Salt Lake City. It's being reported that 2 people are dead, 8 people shot after a shooting at a Salt Lake City church funeral.
To be transparent, I am on the side of churches having security teams. I think it is a good thing. So I'm biased when it comes to this. I've done my own praying, I've done my own studying of the word. And even on a personal level, when it comes to self-defense, I think there are occasions, there are circumstances where even in self-defense, the Lord gives us a right to defend ourselves, even if it means taking the life of another individual. And so that kind of trickles out to security teams at churches. And so I am biased when it comes to this. I think churches should have security teams to stop threats. But one of the counters or one of the things you might hear someone who doesn't think a church should have a security team will say is that, well, we're supposed to be martyrs for the Lord. If you look across the pond, you look in Africa, there we have many brothers and sisters in Christ that are losing their life in church services, even in the past couple months here. Um, and so we're to be the same. We're supposed to give up our life for Christ. And to that, again, that's that webs out into so many other things. But one of the things to consider for that thought is, okay, you might be ready or you might be willing to be a martyr as you're sitting in your church, but the person sitting beside you might not be ready or willing to be a martyr. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that if churches are doing the correct thing, they should be having non-believers joining them in worship and hearing about Christ from the sermon and feeling the love of Christ from the Christians that are in that church. And so you might be ready to be a martyr, but someone who does not have a relationship with Christ might be someone new to your church. It might be someone that has been attending your church for a while and they aren't right with the Lord, and they need to get right with the Lord because we don't know. We can have an idea where we're going to end up after we die, but we don't know like the people sitting beside us in church what their relationship with like is like with Christ completely. And so there are going to be unbelievers in a church service worshiping that should have, in my opinion, the chance to have as much time to turn to the Lord, have extra days to turn to the Lord, have that opportunity to turn to the Lord even if an unbeliever enters to begin shooting up the church, that unbeliever that is shooting up the church doesn't have the right to end the life of another unbeliever that is attending the church to hear about Jesus. And so that's one of my thoughts there for that. Okay, you might be ready to be a martyr, but the person sitting beside you at church might not be ready to be a martyr, and that person sitting beside you at church might be an unbeliever who needs more chance for the seed to grow. Again, this is coming. I understand that's a whole different topic, but this is coming from an Arminian background. I'm an Arminianist. I believe God gives us the choice. I'm not a Calvinist. And so if you are a Calvinist and you're listening to this, you're coming from a different angle. You're like, well, God has the elected people that he's going to save. So if someone were going to be saved before their church is shot up, they would have been saved already. And that would be your thought there. So again, I'm coming from that angle. So that might be how you process that. And maybe there are more people willing to be martyrs if they believe that that God elects people, like he knows who he's going to save before he even created the world. There might be more people willing to be martyrs as Calvinists than as Arminians. Interesting off the topic talk. That could be a different video. But anyways, just because you're ready to be a martyr doesn't mean the person beside you is ready to be a martyr.
One by one, worshippers are screened at this Abuja church before they are allowed into the premises for the service. Church security and state police posted here conduct the searches. It's a measure church authorities say has become necessary following a recent wave of attacks on churches in Nigeria.
I'm making this video in segments as I'm going along, and I want to make it clear that I understand that this is a very hard topic. Just because I've landed somewhere doesn't mean that I think that what my opinions are on this will fit every church. Again, each church is going to have to take up this issue of a security team on their own. It's going to take praying. I'm going to say it's going to even take fasting to decide what to do here, because what we're talking about, and this is what makes this so difficult, what we're talking about is ending the life of someone created in the image of God who is choosing to do evil, choosing to sin, in order to save the life of those who are created in the image of God, who are coming together to worship God in a house of worship. And so the hard part about this is, okay, you have to study the word, and you have to pray, and you have to find out, Lord, is it okay for our church to end a life to save other lives? And that is a tough question. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I have done praying, I've done studying on that myself. I think it's okay in a self-defense situation to end another life to save my own. Does that mean that I will? Depends the circumstance. If I'm by myself, I know, again, it goes back to that thing. I know where I am going if I die. And so maybe I'll try to use a less violent, less life-threatening method to try to end the threat, while still trying to keep the person alive. But if my wife is with me, or friends are with me, or family's with me, that's a different circumstance. This is something that can't be entered into lightly, but it is something that needs to be discussed in churches and a decision made, whether that is to have a security team or not. But it's interesting, you're starting to see security companies out there are starting to offer church training to churches so that they can have security teams that will know what to do in case a shooter happens. And I think that's really important here. Even if you decide not to have a security team, you should have a plan on what should happen if a shooter enters your church and begins shooting up the place. Even if you're like, we're not going to try to defeat the threat, we're just going to try to get out as many of us as possible. Even if you land in that boat, You need to have a policy. You need to have a decision made, being like, okay, if a shooter comes in this door, we're going to take out these exits. We're going to try to lock these doors. Or if a shooter comes in these doors, we're going to try to, kind of hide and ambush him, try to pounce on him, take away and disarm him. Which, if you decide to go that route, you're still going to lose lives, especially from the ambush team. You're going to lose lives that way. Not saying you won't lose lives if you try a more violent measure, but again, as I'm saying, that's what makes this so difficult, such a difficult topic. Um, there's so many variables to it. There's going to be people on both sides of the line. Ultimately, and again, I'm not trying to get you swayed one side or the other. What I'm trying to do with this video is to get you to think about it, to think about what your church needs to do, if anything. Maybe, you go to the Lord and you feel like, okay, we're doing fine with what we have right now. Okay. At least you went to the Lord for it. Or you might go to the Lord and the Lord guides you to set up a security team. My purpose for this video is to get you thinking about it, because in the last 25 years, we've had 246 shootings. And in the last few decades, 94% of house of worship shootings have happened in Christian churches. As I'm posting this video, we've had two at least church shootings in the past 4 or 5 months. And so it is a good idea to figure out where you stand on this. And if you are a congregant, maybe talk to your pastor about a security team and get that conversation going. Maybe your church has a security team already that you can join if you'd like to do that. Or just bring it up to the church leadership if you're a congregant, or as a pastor, be praying and thinking about it. If you're a staff pastor, to bring it up to the lead pastor or whatever. Just make this video again. Just talk about it. Just get the talk going. And if you guys decide to leave it as it is, okay. And if you guys decide to make policies and put in a security team, okay. But this is something that um, it's something that needs to be talked about and prayed over, so that if it does happen, and even oh man, even if it were to happen at your church, and I don't know if many churches are doing this, they're prepping for if a church shooting happens, but they might not have much policy on what to happen after a church shooting happens. And even another thing, I was saying this in my last long form video, another policy you got to discuss is protesters coming into your Sunday worship service and protesting. What are you going to do there? So that's something else, another area where you have to have discussion. If you have a security team, you have to talk to them. You're like, okay, what are we supposed to do if protesters come in? They're not here to harm the church. They're just here to protest. Because now this is a new thing. Just 2 Sundays ago, we had protesters go into a church in Minnesota and protest during a worship service. And so you can either be ready, having a policy, or having discussed this and knowing what you're going to do already, whether that's something or whether that's nothing, or you can fly by, what's the saying? Fly by your shoelaces or whatever. You can wing it. Wing it if someone comes in and hope for the best. I think there is wisdom and preparation, whether that is preparation to do something or preparation to do nothing. But this is something that I think should be discussed. That's the purpose of this video. I don't know if there's anything else much to say. Again, hard topic. Hard topic. You're going to have different churches land on different sides here, and you're even going to have congregations, people in the congregation land on different sides. But it is something that needs to be brought up in churches and discussed on what to do. So don't shy away from it. If you need to be the one to get the ball rolling, do it, even if it means that no change happens. At least it was discussed and brought up. Thanks for watching.